This conference
Okay.
will now be recorded.
All right.
Okay.
Go ahead.
That voice, the automated voice that came on was a little bit garbly, but are we still all able to hear each other in a clear way?
I can.
Yeah, I can hear you
And
fine.
I can hear.
And I just joined.
Yeah, it
I
was
was
just that
excited.
voice.
Can you see me?
I'm sorry. No, but we can hear you, which is good.
Okay. Good. I'm trying to
it's
get GoToMeeting on my computer, and I almost did. Right now I'm on my phone, which is a small screen, but I'll continue to try to get GoToMeeting on my computer.
I think there's a new version, Susannah. I had to go through several hoops, but luckily I didn't have to download it. It just seemed like I had to go through a bunch of choices.
Apple
But I
support
did-
helped last night, but now it's not doing it. So never mind. We can continue. And did you do anything in the meeting? Because I've been struggling for the last 5 minutes on this. So did I miss anything?
Nope.
Okay.
In fact, there's one other person that may be struggling. So we just kind of paused and didn't quite start yet.
Okay.
Let's see, what are we doing? Okay, Gail, I'm going to let you make the call as to when you think we should just get started. Because it looks like that one person is may still be struggling because
Yeah.
Susannah's, separate from the other person.
Yep, we can start, Connie.
Okay, so I'm calling this meeting to order for the Elsie Jewell Seaside planning meeting. And I'm Connie Moore, and I live on Hamlet Road, and I've been with the committee since the beginning. Oh, Susannah, that's you twice. There we go. And it was squalling, but now it stopped, and we can see you. But we can't hear you.
There we go. I shut off my mic because because of the feedback. I turned off my phone. I'm on my computer. Yay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yay, and good to see you, and no feedback. Good. Since you're talking, did you just want to introduce yourself? And then Herb, I'm not meaning to skip over you, but since Susannah can practice her new connection a little better.
Susannah Gladwin here. I live in Jewell for 50 years now, and not as long as her, but yes, I have farmland and timberland. Thank you.
Herb Olstead, lived in
Herb.
Jewell all my life. Hello. I live in Jewell also, lived here for 68 years.
And I'm Gail Hendrickson, Community Development Director. And Connie, we also have Chris Farrar on the line as a member of the public if he wanted to introduce himself.
Yeah, I'm Chris Farrar. I sit on the County Planning Commission, but I'm here today just as a resident of Clatsop County. I live out on John Day River Road most of the time.
Thank you, Chris, for joining us. And good to see you again, Herb. Okay, so when now Gail, I had talked with Julia yesterday, but I don't see her in the meeting, at least on my platform. She had said that you guys could help with the elections of officers, because I'm going to be the first to admit that parliamentary procedure is not my strong point.
Okay, and you're correct, Julia is not here. She has another project that has a deadline that needs to get completed today, so I told her that I would run the meeting this morning. As far as election of officers goes, it's a very simple and straightforward procedure. We'll need a chair and a vice chair. We just need a nomination. The nomination does not need a second. So anybody who would like to nominate one of the members for chair, we'll open the floor for nominations.
Should we wait till there's more people at a meeting to do this, or?
That's completely at the discretion of you. Yeah, if you want to wait, I'm fine with that.
Do we know if Pam Birmingham is going to try to be here?
As far as I know, Susannah, I didn't hear anything from either her or Donna Bing about not being here.
And Donna Bing, is she now on the committee?
Yes.
Okay. And from Donna?
There's somebody coming
Hi, this is Pam.
Oh,
Hey,
good.
Pam.
in. Yay!
Hi.
All right, Pam, do you want to do a quick introduction? Good to hear you.
Yeah, sorry, I'd been trying to do the one dial thing and it just kept bumping me out saying that I have the wrong access code. So anyway, sorry for the delay in joining. I'm Pam Birmingham. I live out in Elsie and I'm here now. Thanks.
So Herb, that makes 4 of us. What would you prefer that Donna be here as well? I mean, I'm totally up for anything that, and I'm assuming we would want to have if we want to postpone it, that we'd want to have a vote on that.
Well, we can go ahead with it as far as I'm concerned. It might be hard to get everybody at every meeting, so I would just say that I would not be available for it, because I don't feel like, with running my logging business, sometimes I probably are going to miss some meetings. I don't want to foul things up by not being present, so I wouldn't be available for either position there, with chair or co-chair.
I'm willing to be a chair or vice chair.
And I think that, originally there was a fabulous chair, Ron, and I think part of it, I get really nervous, and part of it is that I feel like I've never completely filled his shoes, and it's my goal to be part of this planning process, but the pandemic is, you'd think it would make things easier because we wouldn't have to drive someplace, but things are more complicated. And in terms of my personal health and schedule, and my partner's personal health and schedule, and so I just feel like that I'm not sure I'm serving the group really well as chair, and that's my biggest concern. But what my other biggest concern is just, I want the best for this process.
Okay, so would someone like to nominate someone to be chair?
I think I'm wondering, Pam, do you have any thoughts on this whole topic?
I guess I wouldn't mind being chair. I don't know the process that well, but if Gail or Julia, somebody is always there to guide us, I don't mind the task or the responsibility. I'm just not sure when we have to, call for a motion or call for a vote. So if I could have some guidance, I would be happy to be chair.
Okay. Gail, since I'm still chair at this point, it's going to take somebody from the floor to do the nomination, correct?
I think that anybody can nominate. This is different than having a motion and a vote, so it's a nomination. So we just need a nomination,
Okay.
and we don't need a second.
Okay. I would like to nominate Pamela or Pam. I'm sorry, Pam. I know some Pamelas and I get it all confused. Names are not my strength.
Okay, so you're nominating Pam for chair, is that correct, Connie?
Yes.
Okay, are there any other nominations?
I'm happy to self-nominate. I was comfortable last month running the meeting, but I don't know if I can self-nominate.
I think you can self-nominate. I know the Board of Commissioners has had a person who has done that.
Okay.
Okay, are there any other nominations for chair? Okay, hearing none, we're going to close the nominations for chair. We have two nominations. One is for Pam, one is for Susannah. So we'll do 2 votes. And I guess I'll do a roll call vote so it makes it easier for everyone to hear. So the first vote would be to elect Pam Birmingham as chair. So Connie, what is your vote?
I vote for Pam Birmingham.
Okay, Pam.
Oh, this is hard because I don't really care. I mean, I could vote for Susannah.
Well, the vote right now is to either vote yes or no.
Okay, for me. Okay, for me.
Okay, Susannah.
Oh, I'll be self-interested and vote for myself.
Okay, so you're voting no for Pam?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay. And then Herb?
I'll vote for Pam.
Okay. So that's 3-1. We can have a vote on Susannah, but I think we know what the outcome is going to be.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay, so then Pam, you'll be chair. You'll need to call now, Pam, for nominations for vice chair.
I call for nominations for vice chair, and I would ask Susannah to be vice chair.
Okay, so Herb has nominated Susannah for vice chair. Are there any other nominations?
Oh, I'm in my meeting here. No.
Any other nominations,
No.
Connie or Pam or Susannah for vice chair?
No.
Okay, we'll go ahead and close the nominations. The only nomination was for Susannah, and I think this one we can do just on a voice vote. Anybody, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. And it doesn't sound like anyone was opposed. So Susannah will be the vice chair. All right. And so then Pam, I'm going to turn the meeting back over to you. We're at the review of the meeting summaries.
Sorry, I'm scrolling back up to that. Okay, I'm kind of lost. Joining late, I kind of lost where we were. I'm looking at the attachment you sent out, Gail.
Oh, and yes, so we don't have a meeting summary. That's correct. So we didn't get that one prepared, so we can move on. Which
Oh,
the
good.
next.
I'm glad it wasn't just me missing it.
Yeah, sorry. My committees have blended together. So our next item of business would be public comment and input. And we do have one member of the public, Pam, Chris Farrar, if he wanted to provide any public comment or input.
Oh, hi, Chris. Anything you'd like to share?
I just have one comment, and it's in how the meetings are run. And I realize these are supposed to be local citizen advisory committee meetings, and I've sit in on quite a few of them, different ones from around the county. I think there's 5 others. And oftentimes people like me just get involved in the general discussion that the actual official committee is taking up at the time. And in a way, I thought about it last night because I was in a meeting yesterday where I interjected stuff all the time, and it was probably really out of order as a member of the public to step in the middle of something on the agenda that's not a public comment period. So I don't know if the members of this Citizens Advisory Committee have some comment they want to make on how the public should participate throughout the meeting. Should it be reserved to this particular time, and then toward the end of the meeting there's always some time allotted as well? So I was just curious what the sentiment of the committee is on that.
This is Pam. Personally, because we are a small group, you know, and each of us have our knowledge base, I like, if we can do it, to keep things open and formal. I think we'll have a better process the more input we get. And I'm certainly not a stickler for, you know, you can only speak during public comment. If you have something, you know, on point, on topic to say, I think it will benefit the whole process if you can say it. That's just my opinion. What do the other committee members say?
I agree. I don't have to say much, Pam. I completely agree with what you've put forth.
Is there a problem?
Susannah?
Is there a problem with that, Gail?
No, not at all. In fact, most of the committees have been operating that way since the beginning.
Herb?
Fine with me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up, Chris. I appreciate it. And your input is always valued and welcome. So other than that, did you have anything else to say, Chris, before we move on out of public comment?
Not really at this point.
Okay. So it looks like review of Goal 5 topics is our next agenda item. And Gail, I need some help here. Where do we go from here?
Yep. So I'll give you a little bit of an overview of what we're looking at today, and then we'll go on to table 1, which are the existing policies, and table 2, which are the policies from the Elsie, Jewell, and the Seaside Rural Community Plans. With goal 5 and goal 13, we're going to be focused on discussion about energy today. And goal 5 is looking at sources of energy that either serve the county or are produced in the county. And there is in your background material a list of resources that was discussed back in 1980 when the original plan was adopted. And it covers a variety of energy sources, including hydropower, which includes the Bonneville Power Administration dams that supply our electricity here to most of the county. It looks at coal, it looks at petroleum-based products, it looked at wood, and actually predicted that in the future wood would possibly be the energy source for up to half of the county in terms of heating and electricity. It looked at nuclear power and actually went so far as to identify a 400-acre site out in Brownsmead that might have been appropriate in 1975 for a nuclear power plant. Looks at wave and wind energy. And 40 years ago, that technology was not advanced far enough that the committees reviewing that energy source really thought it would be practicable for mainland areas. They saw it as being valuable for island areas, but not for powering cities in the county. So with goal 5, those energy sources, it's going to be focused on identifying the sources and making sure that they're protected from encroaching development. With goal 13, which focuses on energy conservation, you're going to be looking at ways that we can reduce our energy consumption in order to prolong the life of those energy sources. So the two are very closely related. And when we get into our goal 13 table 1 or table 1 policies and look at those, you'll be able to go through that. And then we'll look at table 3, which are new issues and maybe technologies that we need to identify and address in the comprehensive plan. So at that point, I will stop and just ask, are there any questions?
No.
Okay. So then, Pam, since you don't have a computer screen, do you want me to maybe talk a little bit more about this, and I can read the policies out loud since I don't have a screen.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. So if you go to table 1, which are the existing comprehensive plan policies for goal 5, there are 4 of them. And would the committee like to go through these one by one and discuss each one? I can, it might be the easiest way to address them. So we just go down the line.
I think so. I do have that table in front of me. So yes, I think one by one would be helpful.
Okay. So we'll start policy 1. It says development shall not be allowed to impair the feasibility of potential wind generating facilities at sites identified as appropriate for such generation. So it's really geared towards the 6 sites that were identified in 1983 and making sure that those potential sites are protected. And the sites that were identified were on the Clatsop Spit, the Columbia River Jetty, Fort Stevens, the Astoria Weather Bureau, a site out at the airport, and Wickiup Ridge. And what staff has recommended is retaining the policy, but none of those sites have ever been developed or, to the best of my knowledge, closely looked at for wind generation sites. We do have a site now out on Nikolai Ridge, where a testing tower is going to be constructed in the near future. They have their permits and their approvals, and they're looking at that as a wind generation site. So for the time being, staff has recommended just retaining the policy as it's written.
Where's the last one?
Wiki Upridge.
Oh, I don't know why I thought I heard something that started with an N, and it was probably I just misheard it.
Yeah, no, so we have the 6 sites, but in October, a wind generation company came in and got approvals to actually build a test tower out on Nikolai Ridge, which was not one of the sites that was
where's
identified. It's
and
out
where's
off
Nikolai?
of just off of Highway 30, past Napa, just before you get to Wana, or maybe it's just after Wana.
Okay.
Gail, by retaining the policy, it does not limit us to those previously identified sites, correct?
Correct. We can add new sites as they're identified, and we'll probably want to recommend that on table 3 with Nikolai Ridge and make sure that gets included. But you can always add sites to this inventory.
Okay. I want to make sure the plan is flexible as things change, that it's not too burdensome to add sites if they meet the criteria.
Yeah, there is a process we would need to go through to add any site to any inventory, but that's just part of the process we would go through, and that's just what it is.
Okay. Should we vote on each of these policies?
I don't know that you need a formal vote. I think if there's a consensus to support the staff recommendation, that would be fine.
Okay.
Pam, I realize you probably can't see, right? And
No,
so I'm not sure the best.
I do have this table up in front of me.
Oh no, I meant like I put my hand up, so I don't know how to politely
No.
without jumping in and wrecking the flow of the meeting. I just wasn't sure. How would you like person to identify
talking.
themselves? Oh, okay.
Talking.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that since we're in this particular piece of the table, the first thing that comes to mind for me is that I took a big trip through the gorge last summer, and believe me, I am a big fan of wind power, and especially as a substitute for some of those other things like coal and nuclear. But sometimes I wonder if we're picking sites because they're the cheapest to use, or they're influenced by somebody that wants them used for the because there's some benefit there, or if we're really choosing the sites that need to be used. I think that's my piece on and whether we could prioritize these and I think where I'm headed with this is the gorge is something that's very important to me, and it was a little bit hard to see the windmills across the scenic gorge, and I kept wondering if they couldn't have been somewhere else on all that desert that's across eastern Oregon.
Gail,
Should I say something here?
Oh, please do.
Okay, well, I'm totally against these windmills, and I'll tell you a few of the reasons. I've done some research. Hydropower costs us 33 cents per kilowatt right now. Windmills cost us 97 cents, triple of what, and we have to subsidize these plants, these wind turbines. The blades only last 25 years at best on a wind turbine. Right now, they're being dismantled and hauled to a place on the North Platte River to Casper, Wyoming, and being buried because they cannot destroy fiberglass without an environmental disaster. 25-year lifespan. It costs $200,000 per windmill to take care of these. They're not cost effective. I've known several people that work on these, several farmers in Eastern Oregon that have them on their land. They're ugly. They're not efficient. The blades are not recyclable. And it seems like a waste of time for what we pay for these and what we're getting out of them. They kill birds by the thousands. People seem to always be worried about birds being bothered. Well, these are the bird killers we're looking at. And I think it's just in my opinion, a fallacy to even consider these when there's other things we can make electricity out of. Each one of these windmills takes 600 cubic meters of concrete to put in the ground, and it's never removed. I just think it's an environmental and a cost ineffective way to create power. And that's my thoughts on this. And I shall vote against anything that promotes windmills in Clatsop County.
And I'd like to say, because our hills are all forested and forestry is our main goal, what we want our land, most of our lands to be used for, the big trees really inhibit putting up windmills. And I don't see windmills to be much in this county because of that. That's all.
I was wondering, and I don't know if it's is in another part of if it's mentioned somewhere, and I forgot about it because it just came up as I'm, as we're talking about, some of the issues with windmills. I think it's the Netherlands that utilize the ocean as a power generator, as opposed to, though of course they have windmills, but that are just part of their culture. But it seems like there's at least a couple of countries, maybe in the Northern European area, that utilize ocean power.
And I want to comment on that, but I think that's later on, isn't it, Gail?
Yeah, when we get to goal 19, which deals with the offshore territorial waters, that's where we'll be talking about the offshore generation facilities. A lot of that is going to be outside of our boundaries, our jurisdictional boundaries, because it's going to be located so far offshore, but it is covered in goal 19.
Oh, okay, sorry, I just saw it as an energy source. Okay.
I have a couple of quick comments about this policy number one. I certainly appreciate Herb's, if I may use a first name, I'm sorry, I tend to be a first name guy, don't mean to be disrespectful, but I appreciate your comments about the environmental consequences of some of these energy sources that are often touted as being environmentally beneficial. And I agree with you that those windmills are responsible for killing large numbers of birds. The numbers are difficult to really calculate, and there's controversy on that. But another thing about windmills or wind turbines is that they use a lot of exotic elements in them to make the very powerful magnets. They use some of the lanthanide series of the periodic table. They're the so-called rare earth elements, and the production of those is a very messy process environmentally. So there are a lot of environmental reasons that one should be concerned about switching to this as a source of power. But on the other hand, I think really for all the sources that potentially could be used here in our county as energy, as far as the economics, I think you let that work out in the marketplace. And the cost of wind and solar energy sources is falling dramatically over the last couple of decades, and it's going to go lower and lower, and the cost of solar will be competitive certainly with any of the fossil fuel sources and nuclear power as well as others. So I would hope that people would realize that rather than trying to determine the economic feasibility of these, that'll come out over time through our market system. That's kind of how it works. And just by leaving the possibility open, it lets the technology develop and economic conditions and models change and maybe bring these things online that seem kind of infeasible right now. But I do agree there's always ecological and environmental consequences of any of these energy sources that we use. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Chris.
Well, I would comment,
Go ahead,
that the price of this power right now, and this was fairly recent, I talked to somebody from West Oregon Electric, and this is, it'll work out in the market, but you're going to squeeze the mid-income and poor people drastically with these electric rates that we're now subsidizing with higher electric costs just to keep these windmills running. Besides all the costs of dismantling the blades and transporting and burying them. So I guess there's two ways to look at it, but that's the way I look at it.
Well, thank you, Herb, for I'm going to second what Chris said. There's a lot I didn't know about the windmill stuff.
It's an evolving technology, and with anything, the earlier phases are more costly and have more environmental impact. I like the idea of wind generation along with solar, but I think we also need to keep pressure on companies that are developing these to develop them in a more environmentally friendly way. There's been a lot of attention lately on the number of bird deaths, and a lot of things are being tried, like painting the blades different colors, bright colors, because if they're painted the white or gray, that attracts insects, and then the birds follow the insects into the path of the blades. Gail, is there a way, and I don't want to make this too complicated, but within this policy to say something like that it won't have a large impact on birds, or I'm not saying that properly, but do you know what I mean? To kind of not just give it a complete green light.
Okay. Let me chew on that for a second. So in terms, so if we were to have a project come in, say this one out on the east side of the county, the test tower shows it's feasible to put turbines up there. So a lot of the regulation in terms of how the turbines will operate will be covered at the state level through Department of Energy. We will have say-so in terms of location and the process it goes through to get approved. But I'm not sure how much say, if any, we will ever have as a county in terms of looking at bird deaths or environmental consequences. And I don't even know how you would quantify that. Is, you know, where do you draw the cutoff line in terms of acceptable bird deaths versus non-acceptable bird deaths? So I don't know if, go ahead.
Oh, as technology changes, I know we can't be specific, but maybe there's a way to say, you know, that the county has the right to require that new installations meet the newest, most environmentally friendly technology. Again, I'm not saying that very well, but there's the location, the color of the turbines. I don't know. Sorry, I'm rambling. I'm not sure how to phrase that.
But you're supporting my thoughts, believe me. In fact, you know, working out at Tongue Point, you know, they're very picky, and I appreciate it for like the nesting times for eagles. So, I mean, eagle is a bird. So, I mean, I'm a little bit nervous when, and I hadn't even thought about it because I'd heard about bird deaths, but now I'm thinking about the eagles and where that place is out. I mean, Napa isn't that far from Tongue Point.
Yeah, I think Herb can speak to this better, but I think Nikolai might be 20 miles south, Nikolai Mountain, 20 miles south of Highway 30.
No, it wouldn't be that far. It's, I think it's about 9 miles off Highway 30 to the top of Nikolai Mountain. About 15 miles north of Jewell.
Oh, okay, so closer to 30. Thanks. I'd like to comment.
Yeah,
I'd like to comment on, you know, when you're balancing the environmental impacts of all the different energy sources, it's a complicated balancing act. And I would like that being open to further contemplation, as Pam says, perhaps it'll have less impact in the future. The one place I would not want to see the wind turbines is up on Saddle Mountain, which probably maybe would be physically a good sighting place. It's a state park, but I wouldn't want to see it there. Is there a way to limit it, say, from Saddle Mountain?
Yeah, I think we could certainly do that. That would be a possibility because that would be a matter of zoning issues. That I think most of that's under control of state parks and rec, and I'm not sure what their view is on that as well. But I think they've taken, and our comp plan takes a lot of effort to protect Saddle Mountain as a natural scenic area. So.
And the same with Onion Peak, I would assume.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You know, there's other new technologies like new shapes instead of blades. There's these kind of cool spiral things. So that's what I was getting at, is that the technology is evolving. And if we could somehow require the newest technology, so that some companies, say it's the ones up on Nikolai or somewhere, don't put in the older ones that aren't the most environmentally friendly just because they cost a little less.
Yeah,
I don't know. Go ahead.
I don't think we can require it, Pam. Partly just because it's outside of our review jurisdiction, and it's really going to be this Department of Energy who's looking at the technical aspects of the project. So what we could perhaps put in would be a policy that says projects shall be encouraged to minimize environmental consequences to the greatest extent possible and shall be encouraged to utilize the most advanced technology available at the time.
Oh, that's perfect. You have a great way with wording things. I would strongly support that being added to the policy. Other thoughts? Anybody?
Well, my concern is it just seems like with some of our landslides lately, it just seems like sometimes companies and groups figure out a way to dodge it. And as I'm reviewing again all the different sites that are in the table, I see all of them impacting eagles. And if we can't, it's like, for example, in the Portland area, you can have a wood stove, but it has to be a certain kind of wood stove to protect the environment. And if we can't manage the type of windmill we're going to have, or even, require an upgrade, because people have had wood stoves in Portland forever, but they now have to have them with a certain amount of environmental air quality protection. I'm starting to feel a little bit nervous about this.
Thank you. Any other thoughts, anybody?
I would like to reword, Gail, your new wording, the last sentence of the first sentence. Instead of to utilize the most advanced technology available at the time, to say something about the least damaging, impactful, something like that, technology. Because advanced technology doesn't necessarily deal with the concerns we've all brought up. So I would like to
I think
impactful.
I think we need to keep it pretty broad. That's why I liked Gail's, because we do have limited jurisdiction. From what I understand, it'll really be more to the Department of Energy. And I know, Connie, I think you had said you were more and more concerned. And it isn't a perfect technology, but I think it's a lot less harmful than a lot of others.
Yes, I'd agree
Well,
with that.
I think where I go with this is that, for example, Germany does not have any more sunshine than we do in the Pacific Northwest. And yet they have, with solar panels, they have been able to eliminate the need for at least one nuclear power plant. They've done some amazing things by just by subsidizing and making sure everybody has solar panels.
I have a quick question on
We're
this.
not talking solar panels, but I'm talking, do we have to have these windmills in our very small county?
On that
Sorry.
point, I'm wondering, there's the 6 identified sites from, I guess, from 1983. And one question is there a map that shows the area that each of those sites includes? For example, how much of Clatsop Spit, what geographic area is that exactly? Is it on a map? And Fort Stevens, well, that's the park, I guess. But each of these has some constricted geographic area. And the only other one being considered right now is this new site on Nikolai. So those are the only places that this policy is saying we want to set those sites aside and make sure we don't mess them up for the possibility of wind generation. But there's no else in the county that's given that protection to hold that spot for a possible wind generation. Those could come later as other companies come in and try to say, well, we want to test this one area here and see if it'll work. But right now, there's just these 6 identified areas, and one of them we're not even sure what it refers to, that Astoria Weather Bureau, and then the new one at Nikolai. So that's something to think about. We're not talking about the whole county, and I don't see Saddle Mountain as really being in jeopardy, or other places that are mainly for forestry.
Thank you, Chris. So Gail, your thoughts, because I know we can't spend our entire meeting on this one. We have to move along. Your thoughts based on the comment. What is within our jurisdiction to add to the policy?
I think what we've talked about in terms of location citing would be one, adding in the new site that we're aware of at this point, and then more aspirational policies that would encourage minimizing environmental impacts and use of most advanced technology available. But we're going to be pretty limited in what we can do. We won't be able to dictate the type of technology that's being used, because again, that will go through Department of Energy. It's almost like Forest Practices Act in a way. We have very little say in what's going to happen, other than locations.
Okay.
But
thank
if we
you.
eliminate the site, then that's our control, right? If we don't provide sites.
I think
I'm sure I'm sounding radical.
So there's sites, and then there's also language in the zoning ordinance in different zones that would allow this as a use that you could possibly do there. So you would also need zoning amendments to remove them out of the zoning codes. And the concern with that would be that at the state level, those in certain zones, those are permitted through state statute. And so even if we were to take them out, if somebody were to come in and challenge us on it, it would default back to state statute, because it is permitted under the state law.
Okay, thank you, Gail.
So I'm back to saying I support the language Gail proposed adding to the policy. Everybody else has had their feedback. So Gail, do we need to vote on that or not?
I think given that there's several different viewpoints in this discussion, I think a vote would be good.
That's what I was thinking. I'm all in favor of adding Gail's language to the policy. Say aye.
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 Actually, do we need to have a second motion and then a discussion, or did we've discussed it at length?
Yeah, I think we're good there. I think I heard 3 ayes, and there's 4 of us on the committee here, right?
Correct.
Okay. So 3 ayes, and all opposed?
I oppose anything to do with wind power in this county, so I don't know how I would vote on that, but I vote no on any type of wind power.
Okay. Okay, so it's 3-1.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like we would ask Gail to add that language to policy 1.
Yep.
All right, can we move on to policy 2?
Yep. Policy 2 is going to be dealing with hydro projects. It says the county will rely on state and federal permitting processes to govern the location of low-head hydro projects and to resolve any conflicts that may result from such projects. Staff is recommending the policy be retained as written because it's the normal process that we would go through regardless.
I don't see anything there that I would want to change. Again, I think our jurisdiction is very limited. Discussion, anyone?
I'm curious if Chris Farrar, as a hydrologist, would like to comment.
Yeah.
I think my general attitude on virtually all these policies goes back to what I said earlier, that these are very general. They're just, to me, they're leaving open the possibility of these things. And there's a lot of things that will dictate whether any of these really play out for our particular county. One question I do have in regard to this whole operation, this whole procedure, is how do you determine which use has priority when there's a conflict of uses? One would be as simple as, we do forestry here in this county. It's a big part of our geography and a lot of people are employed in it. So if forest operations are going in a place and one of these other uses wants to use a site for their operation, but that would eliminate forestry from there, what's the hierarchy of the best use of these lands? And is that something that's left to the county to do the balancing between big game and wildlife habitat and fish in the streams and hydropower and forestry and all those things? Who gets to make that choice on which one we want most or which works best for our county? I think that's really involved in all of these different energy policies.
Right. So this is Gail. So when we put a site on the inventory list, there's a process that we go through, and it's we are required under Goal 5 administrative rule by the state to look at the environmental, the social, the economic, and the energy consequences of listing a resource. And so it's during that process that the county would make that decision about how to prioritize and would look at potential conflicting uses and how the two would interact or conflict with each other. And at that point, we make a determination as a county through ultimately the Board of Commissioners, which resource gets the higher priority.
But would it have to be very specific what you're balancing against, or would something as general as saying, we're concerned about our fish-bearing streams and we want to keep water temperatures and sediment loads and so forth within the needs of meeting the fish that live in the stream, or do we have to pick certain streams and identify them as, we want to protect this stream above as a higher priority than hydro development or some other stream use?
Yeah, you would need to identify specific resources. So not just, you could do a blanket, but we'd have to do that process for basically every stream then in the county. And we'd have to look not just at the environmental, but the social, the economic, and the energy ramifications as well. And again, depending on the board and the situation in the county at the time and the mind state of the residents in the county, those priorities may shift over time.
Can I ask a question? I was wondering if I missed it, but the Goal 5 administrative rule, was it stated in our packet?
It wasn't specifically included in this packet. It was included in much earlier packet on Goal 5 at the beginning of the process when we started our discussions on Goal 5. Okay.
Because it comes up several times. I would love to see it stated again. Just, I don't know if it makes a difference or not. But that's all.
Okay, so
Thank you for your thoughts. Go ahead, Gail.
Go ahead, Pam.
Oh, I was saying thank you to Chris for asking that very important question. And because, like the staff comment says, the county doesn't have the expertise to evaluate every stream, I'm thinking leaving it to the state agencies is probably a wise thing for us to do. Any comments?
I'd like to hear from Chris.
Well, I go back to what I was kind of talking about before. I'd prefer that the counties had a little more say in this up to some point, but it sounds to me like we really don't. And I guess there's not much you can do about that. I read Goal 5. I looked at the write-up for Goal 5 that's from the statewide planning Goal 5, which our county Goal 5 comprehensive plan should be mirror it pretty much. But I see a lot of wiggle room in there for juggling these things around, saying to us, the fish are more important than a few kilowatts of power coming out of here, or it could be some other wildlife habitat that we're concerned about or issue that we place at a higher level than maybe some of the people that wrote this goal in the first place. And for example, under Goal 5 in the state write-up of it that was included in the packet, there's this ABC, the planning, the implementation, and then I'm not sure what C is, but under implementation, it says stream flow water levels should be protected and managed at level adequate for fish, wildlife, pollution abatement, recreation, aesthetics, and agriculture. So if the county deems that putting a hydro plant in a particular location would adversely affect that statement there, then I think we should have a right to decide in favor of the stream, the water in the stream, and the things that live there in the water. But I'm just, it's legal stuff, and I don't know what the answer is there. But I think some hydro projects are probably a pretty decent idea in certain cases, and some of them are done without a dam. They could be done with a sort of a penstock arrangement, taking water through a pipe and then turning something downstream some distance. Some of them can be really small scale, like a hydraulic ram that lifts water at a small amount of water up a large hill just by low head hydrologic principles. So I like the idea of leaving these things open, but I wish that in the end, when we have to decide on a specific one at a county level, that we could actually do it. But I'm just not sure that's the case under state laws.
And I'd like to comment on wording that, and it says, instead of as Clatsop County does not have the expertise to independently review the technical environmental aspects of such projects, instead you could say that, but we would reach out to local agencies and citizens of Clatsop County for feedback, for input, I guess.
Okay, Susannah, that language is just a comment from staff. That's not proposed language.
Gotcha. Yes. But perhaps it could be under policy to, but not only rely on state and federal permitting process to govern, but also would reach out to county citizens and experts and Clatsop County experts, something like that.
Or local watershed groups.
Yes.
Okay.
Can we add something like that, Gail?
Well, let me ask for clarification. By reaching out to those groups and local citizens, what is the outcome you're looking for, Susannah? That we would overturn a state or federal permit or challenge them legally? What would be the outcome that you would be seeking?
I mean, I know that often the process is on a fairly long timeline from state and federal permitting processes where there is local input. I don't know. I can't really, it's a complicated process. I don't know if but sometimes intent or aspirations, which is what the comp plan is all about, is important. And to have in there to oversee and govern the location that not only state and federal processes, but also input from local people,
Right.
including.
Well, local input is already built into our process at the county level, and federal and state projects also have a public comment period. So again, I'm coming back to what is the outcome that you're trying to achieve?
Well, you're right. I mean, yes. Yes, you're right. It covers it. So I withdraw my comment, I guess.
I just want to make sure I'm capturing what the intended outcome is, and if we're already doing it, then I mean we can restate it. We don't need to, but we can. I just want to make sure I'm capturing the outcome that you're looking for.
This is Pam. I think that both Chris and Susannah are striving to have a little more control, local control. And we may be able to get to that by saying the county will rely on state and federal permitting processes along with input from local watershed councils or other, I don't know, local groups. Because I know we have the public input. We have public comment periods for most everything, the county, the state, and the feds. But within the policy, could we add, to give us a little more of an open door for some local control, could we put local watershed councils and other, I don't want to say environmental groups, but yeah, can we put something like that in there?
Yeah, so if we were to say Local watershed councils and stakeholder groups shall be included on all public notices. I think we'll have to put county for proposed projects, or
something like that. Can we get it a little stronger of not just notice, but that we will rely on state and federal permitting processes along with input from local watershed groups and stakeholders?
so again, what is the outcome we're seeking? Because we're going to
A
get
little
comment,
more local control.
right? But it's not going to change what happens at the permitting process at the state or federal level. Without, they're either going to have to bring a lawsuit, or the state and federal governments are going to have to agree that our local watersheds are an approving partner in the permitting process.
So that's adding something like that is really out of our jurisdiction. It
It's
really
going to
does
be
lie on.
it's going to be very difficult for us to get the state and federal approving agencies to say that unless a local watershed council signs off on the permit. I mean, because they've got their whole permitting process.
Right. Okay.
And
All right.
I don't, and if we were to put it that and say that now, you know, the county cannot issue a permit until a watershed council signs off. I'm not, I mean, I'll put it down as a note, but I'm not sure if legally we can do that.
All right, then can we go back to the language you suggested earlier that they would be included in the notification process?
We can, if that's what the committee wants to do.
Yes,
You sound hesitant.
yeah, she has that wording, I believe, Pam. I don't know that you can see it. And I'm thinking that by your wording, Gail, that there will be, the public will in Clatsop County would know perhaps it would be better known that there is a state or federal consideration in county, and just they can get in on the process and commenting perhaps earlier in the process, which is good. So I like your wording.
I do too. Any other comments about that language being added to the policy?
I would move that we accept the new wording.
I second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, sounds like it was unanimous. Thank you for that, Gail, for guiding us through that.
You're welcome. Okay, so we're going to move on to policy 3. I want to do a reality check here. We're at 11:17, so we've got 43 minutes left. We've got 2 more policies in goal 5. We have the remainder of the policies in goal 13, and then we have tables 2 and 3 to complete yet.
Okay.
And we're scheduled to noon, and I have other meetings scheduled after this, so I'm not going to be able to extend the meeting time today.
Okay. All right. We'll try and stay on topic a little more and move a little more quickly.
Okay. All right. So policy 3 says that Clatsop County shall apply the goal 5 administrative rule to oil, gas, nuclear, and large-scale hydro that are proposed in the future. And staff is recommending the policy be retained because we would have to do that anyway.
Well, if that's what we need to do, I'm open to comments. Anybody? We just have to keep this short.
I would like goal 5 to be reiterated. It comes up a fair amount today.
Okay, so did you want me to pull that up so the group can review the Goal 5 administrative role? Is that what you're asking, Susannah?
Yes, and while you're doing that, I want to comment on, there was an old, which is at the very end of our packet, an old proposal for Buster Creek to have hydropower dams on it. And I've not heard about it in maybe 30 years. I don't know how long ago that was. And I'm assuming they found it not appropriate. I know it's on a fault line, and there was a deep earthquake that epicenter was just a mile or so northwest, I think, of Buster Creek. It came down through the fault line and really came to the surface down on Grinnell Road south of 26 with a big boom. Really freaked those people out. I think it was so deep it didn't affect my house right across Buster Creek other than a little shimmy, but no big boom. Anyway, just and I get concerned over the dams really heating up, and that the feeder creeks are 10 degrees colder a lot of times than the main Nehalem, which has been tested at 70 degrees, I think, which is a threat to salmonoid, makes unhealthy salmon that degree. So the feeder creeks like Buster Creek are very important. The temperature of them, to maintain the temperature, is very important.
Thank you for that. I agree that the headwater streams are really important for fish survivability in temperatures. But I think we probably covered that. Again, those, like we just went through on that last policy, the state will have the final say. But I'm grateful we're getting the watershed groups and the other groups notified. And that's when I think those things like stream temperature would come into play. You ready to do policy 4?
Well,
No, I'm sorry.
Susannah had asked that we review the Goal 5 administrative role. I've brought it up. If the group wants to, the consensus of the group is to go through this today, we can certainly do it. There's a lot to cover, but we can discuss it until noon. My recommendation would be that I send it back out to the group again and let you review it on your own time, but it's at the call of the committee.
I think we should review it at our own time, but I like seeing it brought up right here.
Yes, if you could send it to us so we can review it on our own. That way we can maybe get through this agenda today.
Okay, I will make a note to do that.
So on policy 3, again, it sounds very much like we really don't have a lot of jurisdiction over the state and federal, and I could be wrong there. Any comments?
Okay, so the policy really comes down to, are you opposed to the county applying the Goal 5 administrative rule that we're required to do? I mean, is there a concern or an issue with the county following state rules and requirements?
I'm not feel qualified to answer that because I would need to look over the Goal 5 administrative rule before I would want to comment on that.
So
I
even though
agree. Same.
even though we would be required under state law to follow it, if you were to find a policy or a requirement in there that you disagreed with, you would recommend that the county not follow the law?
I don't know. I just don't feel qualified to discuss. I think the problem in Clatsop County as a part of the subduction zone and nuclear, and pending earthquake, that I don't think nuclear is applicable, and also just the large scale hydro in any place is appropriate for Clatsop County.
Or oil and gas. I mean, I guess that it sounds to me, I'm a little confused as to what's our part in policy 3 if it's pretty much regulated at a state and federal level.
Because they still have to go through the land use approval process with the county. So in our zoning regulations, some of which are taken from state statute, if it's on a resource land, a farm or forest zone land, allows certain types of uses, and there is a process that a person would go through or a project would go through with the county to make sure that it's allowed in the zoning district in which it's proposed, that it would meet our land use standards, which would include things like building height in the case of a actual physical building, setbacks from property lines, if there are parking requirements, lighting requirements, things like that. Those are the items that we have control over. So we still have a role. It's not the big overarching role of the stamp of approval to give it the final go ahead in terms of environmental permitting and everything that the state and federal agencies would look at. But we still have a role that we're involved with. If you want, since I'm going to send out the Goal 5 administrative rule, if we're not going to obviously finish our agenda today, so we'll need to pick a meeting date to make this one up so we stay on track. So we're going to have an extra meeting. But when we come back at that extra meeting, then we can come back to this one if you want after you've had a chance to review the Goal 5 administrative rules.
Yes, I like that.
Well, I guess my thought, oh, sorry, Susannah. I don't know, maybe I'm just maybe sounding like I'm giving up or something, but it sounds to me like I don't see our role as being very prominent in this particular policy. And so, I mean, though I do want to review the additional documentation you're going to send, for many reasons, but I don't know. I'm not sure that it's worth our time to go beyond the staff recommendation for policy 3.
This is Pam. I agree with what Connie said in that we do have the land use. We do still have a local tool, and I wasn't deeply involved with the LNG, but I mean, we saw how local and state and federal and it all played out. It took forever, but there are avenues for local input. So at this point, I would say I would retain the policy. Herb?
Yes, I would too, retain the policy.
So I don't know if we need to vote on this, Gail. Do you think we need a vote if we want to postpone this and have a special meeting? or not? Do
Well,
we need to vote
you're
on that?
gonna need a special meeting anyway because we're at 11:28 now, and I
Okay.
don't see how you're gonna complete your work in the next 32 minutes.
Okay, well then, if we all want to review the Goal 5 administrative rule, again, we can just add this to we can postpone decision on policy 3 until our next meeting. Agreed?
Well, I mean, I can see we've got a lot to do and we certainly need an extra meeting. I guess that I'm just trying to clarify. I'm not sure that policy 3 needs to be part of that. But I can see that we're certainly going to run into problems trying to get through the rest of this.
Okay, so does the
But
committee want
oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, but I don't want to shut Susannah out. She has a lot of good input and that I always appreciate. It just seems to me that we don't have a lot of jurisdiction in this particular policy, but yet we push back on LNG like Pam said. So, I mean, there are other avenues.
But one of the big things that slowed down the LNG company was the fact that on parkland, you could not have gas transmission lines, pipes. And that it makes a difference sometimes. I would just like to put it off and review it all and think about it when we come back.
Yeah,
and I think
I'm fine with that if you're comfortable.
Yeah.
If everybody's comfortable with that, let's do that so that we can all feel fully informed before we make a decision. Okay?
do we need to vote? Okay.
I don't think so.
No, we don't need to vote on that.
Okay. So if we can wrap up 3 and go to 4, Gail, does 4 apply to us at all?
Well, 4 is in the countywide comprehensive plan. So if you feel that it's outside your planning area and you don't want to weigh in on that, that's fine. It basically talks about a project that City of Astoria had planned at the time, which was to construct a hydroelectric facility out at Youngs River Falls. And when we talked to the city engineer a few months ago, he basically said that, yes, they do have water rights in that area. They are not looking to build a facility, but if at some point in the future there was some sort of regional water supply issue that came up or regional energy issue that came up, then they would look at reviewing that again. But so our recommendation, even though the project isn't imminent and it would still have to go through a Goal 5 administrative review regardless, we just recommended leaving the policy as written.
And I think I would like to defer to the group that has that area under its bailiwick. I don't know which committee it is.
That would be the Lewis and Clark Olney-Walewski committee.
Mm-hmm. So I would like, instead of that we recommend it, but that we would want to follow perhaps the guidelines from that committee.
Anybody else have comments?
I think we should retain the policy of the staff recommendation.
I do as well. Connie?
Yeah. I'm into retaining it as is.
So Susannah, if we just say retain as is, that, or Gail, I guess this is for you. If our group says retain policy as is, that doesn't undermine the Lewis and Clark group's recommendations, does it?
No, because all of the recommendations will go to the countywide advisory committee, and from there, then they go to the planning commission and ultimately the board of commissioners. So, you know, if everybody but one group recommends retaining the policy as written, chances are that's going to be the recommendation the countywide makes.
And are you okay with that, Susannah?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm
All right.
voice, so that's fine.
All right. So yes on 4 to accept the staff recommendation.
Okay.
Back to you, Gail.
All right, so that brings us into goal 13, which is energy conservation. So policy 1 is broken into 4 subsections, so I'm going to cover each subsection separately. So policy 1, subsection A, says the county recognizes the need for energy conservation through support of a county-wide conservation program in which the county government will play a leading role. Methods to reduce energy consumption should be explored, such as enforcing strict temperature and lighting controls in government buildings and incentive programs for carpooling, etc. And staff is recommending that that policy be retained.
I agree. Other comments?
I
agree.
I agree.
I agree.
Okay. Okay, so sub policy B says new government buildings shall be energy efficient. Decision on design and selection of equipment should not be based on the lowest initial cost alone. Operating and energy costs for a reasonable life expectancy of the building must receive equal consideration. Further, consideration should be given to the use of solar energy in heating and cooling all new government buildings. Staff is recommending the policy be retained.
Agree.
I wholeheartedly, I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Sub policy C, this one's a little longer. So it says the county, the cities, the extension service, and the community college should work together to establish an energy conservation service with the assistance of private and public funds and expertise. The service could provide the following, and then it lists 6 items. Item 1 is promote energy conservation through seminars and educational programs. Service 2 would be to develop climate maps, energy efficient building standards, and other guidelines for conservation. Service 3 would be to partner with the local utility companies to provide technical assistance to help people retrofit their homes or buildings. Service 4 would be to conduct audits, energy audits through the assistance of the utility companies and identify wastes in buildings. Service 5 would be to provide technical assistance to evaluate the energy efficiency of new buildings that are being built. And Service 6 would be to maintain information on energy efficiency of brands and models of cars, appliances, etc. So the staff recommendation, first of all, we have never formed this conservation service, so that original proposal never came to fruition. In terms of the services that were recommended, staff is recommending we delete number 2, which deals with developing the climate maps partly because we do not have that expertise on staff, partly because a lot of that work is being done at the state level at this time. So we would recommend deleting that one. We have also recommended deleting numbers 4, 5, and 6. A lot of that information now is just provided by manufacturers. A lot of it's mandated under the state building codes program. And, local utility companies are already offering energy audits to people who request them, and it's not something that the county would do. So basically, the staff is recommending keep policy 1 and policy 3, or service 1 and service 3.
This is Pam. I have a question on C2. I understand develop climate maps, that we don't have the local expertise. As far as developing energy efficient building standards, do we have that jurisdiction, or does that fall solely within the statewide building codes?
That's going to fall under the building codes. We do have the ability to adopt additional local building code standards at a local level that would be a little bit more stringent, or even a lot more stringent. But I don't know if that, yeah, so I'll just leave it at that. So yeah, we could adopt more stringent standards at the local level.
I would like to see us work on that. I go through a lot of new construction homes in my job, and I'm surprised that the corners cut. They are doing the bare minimum required by the state for energy efficiency. And I don't think it's enough, and the cost for upgrades to higher energy efficiency standards is minimal. So I would like to see us retain that part, but I'm open to comments. Anybody?
I agree with Pam.
I disagree completely. All this is going to do is raise the cost of houses, and this whole thing of developing the climate maps is going to have more government workers and things this county can't afford. I think we should delete that, number 2.
Bonnie?
I think so I'm going to kind of try to reply to both sets of thoughts here. I think that when I think about it being a benefit for the whole, what I'd like to see is improvements in the in building codes to conserve energy, but I think that there could be other ways to subsidize homeowners so that they because it'll be part of the building long term, and it'll be part of our total conservation long term. And so I think rather than putting it on the individual homeowner, I want to see the building standards improved, but I think there should be subsidies. When I put solar panels on my house in Portland, I had some subsidy. And I think that, I think that we need to, I'd like to get out of this idea that it's just on an individual person's pocketbook, when we're really increasing building standards improves it for everybody.
Well, when you talk of subsidy, who's paying for this?
All of us,
Where's that money
including the corporation.
Quite often, I think there
we've got a lot
tax credits.
What corporations are you wanting to tax for this?
We've got tons of money coming into Oregon. And a lot of it's not, they're not paying their fair share.
Okay, so Connie, to bring it back to what
I'm
we can
totally
actually,
against that type of thought. There's not tons of money in Oregon now. This state's basically broke now,
okay, so
especially with this.
I want to refocus our discussion because first of all, we as Clatsop County cannot go out and tax all the corporations in the state. First of all, we just do not have that jurisdiction. End of story, period. Okay, so if you want to work with a subsidy program, Herb asked the correct question: who in the county would be providing that subsidy?
Yeah, okay. I understand the, you know, the nature of the proposal. I'm sorry, I went off on my ivory tower. So I think that what I would like to see, I don't want an individual homeowner. Already, it's the average person can barely afford a house. And so, though I really want to see improvements in the in the building codes, I don't see us being able to do that until maybe, of course, addressing it at the state level, that there is more support for you know, for the individual who's you know, trying to make a better house or a building.
I have a question about the subsidy part of it. Is it possible to give homeowners some benefit by reducing their property tax temporarily over a period of years to help make up for the added cost of renovations?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, Chris. I think that came up either in the Northeast or the Clatsop group yesterday, but I haven't had a chance to look into it yet.
Thank you for mentioning that, Chris. I was trying to think of how we could encourage, I was speaking more of new construction, changing the building code for new construction, but I like the idea of someone coming in and having an energy audit from their utility company and then making renovations and then possibly getting a local property tax credit for X amount of years for the cost of the renovations. If you can check into that, Gail, that would be appreciated. I think that's something we could do on a local level that makes it maybe more voluntary than mandatory.
Okay. So on policy sub policy C, is there further discussion? Okay, so when we come back at our next meeting, then I'll make a note that we need to come back to this tax abatement question.
Now,
Okay.
if you decrease property taxes, where do most of the property taxes in Clatsop County, what do they go to, Gail?
I would imagine the biggest portion probably goes to the school districts.
Absolutely. And then they're going to be out of money. You're walking on a double-edged sword here if you do something like that. Then they'll have to have more money for run the schools. I don't think that would work personally.
Yeah, that's why I'm concerned about increasing the requirements now. I mean, we already have an economy that is not level. And, you know, I, without going into any detail, even facing it for myself, I can't even put an addition on my house that doesn't include plumbing, new plumbing. I can't even put an addition on my house at this point that wouldn't cost twice the amount of what it cost to build the original house. And my house is not 100 years old. And we've got homelessness all over the place. So I'm not in favor. That's the only reason I'm not in favor of increasing the standard, is because people, the average person, can't even afford what we're currently doing.
Okay, so I will check about I don't even know if such a program is even feasible, but I will check on that, and we can discuss that at our next meeting then. Okay, so
Thank you.
right now we've got basically 11 minutes left, 10. Do we want to try to get through? Well, let's finish policy 1. Okay, so any other comments on sub-policy C? All right, hearing.
I'm rereading it for the last time to make sure.
I think we should go with the staff recommendation myself.
But we're going to discuss some of this again, correct?
Yeah, as soon as we get through through policy 1, we'll set a special meeting date so we can finish this up.
I guess would we come back to policy 1, or are we going to call it good? Because my other concern was private, the term assistance of private and public funds and expertise. I'm concerned about private funds. I'm not a big fan of that, of what we've been doing in the last few decades of sharing private and public money to make something work.
And what is your concern, Connie?
What the minute you start adding private money, then the private interests of start get a higher influence in the way to conduct business that favors them.
I see this is Pam. I see your point. But private funds can help get things done. So if we're coming back to that, I guess.
That's because we don't have enough public funds, and that's probably, you know, that's you know, I'm just throwing out my wish. You know, we are in an environment now where, you know, private industry has a lot of power, and it's going to take a while to get back to where we were in 1950.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll ever get there, but I would hate to totally say we couldn't accept private funds. I think we would be limiting ourselves. This plan has to be durable. It has to be flexible and nimble and open to opportunities for the next, what was this, 20 years, 50 years? So I'd be hesitant to just strike the word private.
I see your point. Like I say, I was in my ivory tower, and it could take could take 50 years to get back to 1950. So where, we completely established a huge infrastructure with totally public funds. And it was great.
Right. All right. So we're going to finish discussion on C, 2C, or C2, sorry, at the next meeting after Gail checks with assessment and taxation or whomever. So the last one here is D. Gail?
Right. And that policy says that the county and the city should work together to establish a county-wide recycling operation. And I'm not sure what a sheltered workshop program is. But anyway, so basically we do have Recology in the county. Last year we opened our household hazardous waste facility, and you can dump your car batteries, fluorescent lights, and other hazardous materials there. Staff has recommended that we revise the policy to state that the county will continue to support, promote, and expand recycling opportunities.
I support that. I have a question, maybe more on a personal note. Out where I live, I'm not served by Recology. It's Western Oregon Waste. And they will not provide any recycling bins or any recycling services for any of us out there. Who determines what private company gets a territory for waste management?
I don't know the answer, Pam. I can check on that though, and when we come back at our next meeting, I can ask, hopefully I have an answer for you.
Yeah, I would love to see, I guess my company is called Waste Management. Anyway, they do Elsie, Jewell. I don't know if they do Hamlet or not, but they serve a big portion of the eastern part of the county, and they just will not offer any recycling. And I would love to see.
There's no recycling on Hamlet. No recycling.
Yeah.
I was just adding to that quickly. So.
Yeah, I would love to see that as part of sometime if there's a contract with the county or something, that as part of this, that the county will continue to support and promote and expand recycling opportunities, and for that to be curbside as well for whatever vendor is awarded that contract. So I agree about maintaining that, or revising that policy with the staff recommendation language.
Thank you, Pam.
Everybody agree?
Yes, I think that company, it's out of Vernonia, needs to work with county to provide recycling.
Yes.
And perhaps they work with Recology over the use of their hazardous waste facility so that we can come in and use it from East County. I wouldn't want hazardous waste picked up curbside, but which the same thing, the Recology site, you have to bring hazardous waste personally, I believe, to the facility.
Right. But as far as curbside, regular pickup, having a recycling bin
Yes,
with your normal wheelie bin would be really wonderful, because I know as much as I'm into recycling and being green, I get lazy and I throw bottles. If I don't feel like I'm going to go to the recycling place, I get lazy and throw things I shouldn't into the regular waste. But okay, enough about me. Everybody in agreement to make the changes to what staff recommended?
Yes.
We already have a recycling spot in Clatsop County, right? Gail?
I know that you can take items to the transfer station that is run by Recology. We've got the hazardous waste facility, and I think there is a big bin out in Swenson at the county public works site, but I don't think there's one at Jewell.
No, there's not.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I see as a side benefit to the curbside is to grow the idea of recycling and also reach out to the outer parts of the county so that they feel included. It is very frustrating for me when if I could just stop in at Seaside and drop off whatever whenever, it would be no big deal. But it's like there's these certain hours, and I mean, for hazardous waste, I understand, but for just anything, I have to fit certain hours in order to recycle. And I feel that it just leaves the outer parts of the county with an uneven service, just like other things.
And people will do the right thing if we make it easy.
Yeah.
Like providing a recycling bin. So being aware of Gail's commitments to wrap this meeting up here, what is our final thing for D? To accept the staff recommendation? Yes, no, anybody?
Yes, oh, I move that we accept the staff recommendations as revised today.
All in favor? Aye.
I'm just confused with the question. Does that alter the staff recommendation?
No, what I meant was, are we accepting the staff recommendation to revise the policy to state that the county will continue to support, promote, and expand recycling opportunities?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Yes, I vote yes.
Okay. Susannah, Herb?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So that wraps up policy 1, which is as far as we could get today. Next meeting, special meeting. Gail, what are your thoughts?
Okay. So your next regular meeting will be March 12th. So we would need to schedule sometime between now and then. First of all, so Monday is a holiday, so we will not be in the office. Are there particular days of the week that do not work for everyone?
If it's a special meeting, I could do anytime. Generally, Tuesdays don't because I have a work staff meeting every other Tuesday. But for a special meeting, I can be really flexible.
Okay.
I have Clatsop soil water trainings the last end of the 3rd week and much of the 4th week of February, but the 1st week of March is good.
Okay. Herb, how's your schedule?
Yeah, I'm pretty open. I think whatever works for everyone.
Yeah, the first weekend March is fine with me. Connie?
I'm just looking because the next 2 weeks I'm on call for Tongue Point, and my schedule's kind of full the next couple of weeks, but I'm thinking that that if we do it this time frame, like 10 to noon type of thing. I know, for example, Tuesdays are definitely Tuesday, the 23rd, for example, would be a really good one for me.
Does that conflict with your watershed training, Susannah?
Hold on here, because the
Wednesday, actually, Tuesday, Wednesday.
yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of different ones all day long. And I don't think you need to go to the one at 11 a.m., but I'm not sure. But there's one at noon.
Oh, I'm going to
Connie,
offer
how
up.
did Yep,
I'm
go
going
ahead.
to offer up Wednesday and Friday as well. That the what is it? The 24th. I could do the 24th at this time frame, or I could do the 26th at this time frame.
How about the 26th?
Okay.
Okay, that works for me as well. So we'll plan on 10 to noon on the 26th. 6.
All right.
10 to 12. 226. Okay, so I'll send out that meeting invite. We'll use the same agenda, so you will not be getting a new agenda. And in the meantime, I'll work on getting your questions answered. Okay, so we covered that. We are back now, Pam, to public comment and then any closing comments and adjournment.
Hi. Chris, anything to add before we adjourn?
I'll let you go.
Okay, thank you for all your input today. It's really appreciated.
That was interesting.
Anybody have any other comments?
I have a question. I looked into wave energy and talked to a fellow at the PAC Wave and Pacific Marine Energy Center. Should I just email you that information? Can you pass that on, Gail?
Sure, I can do that, Susannah.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be great, so we can all read that in our own time. All right. How do we adjourn the meeting? Do I just say the meeting's adjourned? We don't have to vote or anything, do we?
No, you just adjourn us and we go on our merry ways.
Okay. I adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody, for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Pam.
Huh.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye.